Alright, going to check out my apples first. I just hooked them back up, drying out my apples. I had them on for about 4 hours yesterday. The amount of sugar concentration you get when you dry them out, whoo, it's tasty. That's pretty tasty. Got to dry a little more though. So I put them up to 50 Celsius or 120 Fahrenheit. So just so you know. It's another cool morning. I did watch the Trump-Hillary Clinton debate. That will play into the World War III update. 11 degrees right now, and we must check on dog. I don't know where my cat is. Cats. Dog alive? Hey, Goof? Yeah, she's kind of moving. See, eyes moving anyway, so. Yeah, poor girl still got an itch there. They took her to the vet the other day. She wasn't happy about that. So we got her on medication again. That poor dog. All right, so World War III update. I'm going to... It's sunny. Right in the morning, the sun just kind of gets right in the face there. It's nice though, nice and warm. Oh, a little bit too bright. It's that time of the year where I hate to block out the sun because I like the sun, so, but I can't sit there with the sun in my eyes. So it's that time of year where the sun's a lot lower, the days are getting much shorter, stuff like that. All right, so I got my. Jeez, you're always stalling, All right. Which side should I start on? I don't have a lot, but stuff to. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll start on this side of the page. Sometimes I forget which start. Yeah. I guess this is. Okay. So Obama. If you haven't heard, and again, this does play into what's going on. The 9/11 case against Saudi Arabia, where the families want to sue Saudi Arabia. I'm sure some of them want to shoot them too, for the supporting the hijackers and stuff like that, which is pretty much openly known now. Now, if you sue Saudi Arabia, you have to sue Israel as well, because again, it's the same plot. It's always the same ploy, always the same players, right? That said, the Obamas vetoed it. They can't do it. Now, a lot of people probably don't realize why. And here's the thing. If the United States can sue Saudi Arabia for the 9/11 attacks, what happens to the Bushes and the Obamas and the Clintons when Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, all these people can make cases of crimes against humanity and acts of terrorism. Again, Afghanistan and Iraq, an open line of weapons of mass destruction, and we're no weapons of mass destruction. So that's what it's really about. It's not, they can't do it. They can't do it, though. The United States will have so many countries suing them. It will be, and the thing is, the UN can only cover for, the U.S. to a degree. Like they can't, if they actually call the bluff of international law, which I believe the other countries have the right to sue as well. Again, particularly the Bush family and stuff like that. So Saudi Arabia getting sued is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, and that's why it has more to do with the repercussions of people suing the United States for destroying their countries, right? So, yeah. Okay, and this one's big. This comes all the way from North Korea, where our favorite friend Kim Jong-un is, with his big, powerful, punchy fist. And he, as a mighty ruler, what he did was allow an air show. Yeah, believe it or not, North Korea does its first air show. It looked like there was some pretty good, maneuvers going on there. They had their MiG-29. I think they have like 3 or 4 MiG-29s. These are like the older MiG-29s too. They got the white underbelly, dark green paint, big, the big red star on there. I'm sure they had a bunch of MiG-15s and MiG-17s flying around as well. I like to watch stuff like that in the displays because sometimes you get a feel for how their pilots are and stuff like that. Now the MiG-29 is, regardless of what nation flies it, is a decent airplane. No matter what year you pick. Radar-wise, the problem with the older ones is that that's where they're going to fall short. Airframe-wise, the airplane's fantastic. So you get to see a bit of displays. I guess that might have been a morale booster for the North Koreans. We got a lot going on in North Korea there. Right now there's a talk of a whole. I'll probably get to it down here somewhere. Again, I have to kind of go back and forth a bit, but maybe I'll try to see if I can throw it in. There's a group over there in North Korea that wants to basically overthrow Kim Jong-un. But the thing about this is that, what group of military guys is this? The fact that we know about it, it's kind of one of those things. When a coup happens, you don't get a warning. You don't get a warning. So, yeah. Anyway, moving down. So, no-fly zone. This is Joseph Dunford. If you haven't seen this guy's, there's a little snippet. When they're asking him, this was on RT, they were asking him about, basically John Kerry talking about his no-fly zone. And again, this is the problem I have with these politicians and stuff like that. They say things and they don't realize, well, you're forcing other people into war. And he's like, so they ask him, so when John Kerry says there's going to be a no-fly zone in Syria, what do you make of that? He goes, well, he says, that would mean direct war with Russia. He says, I'm not willing to sign up for that type of thing. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but basically he's got more or less saying he's a fucking lunatic. It's like there's no way we're going to enforce a no-fly zone with Russia. Now, I forget the name of the politician. It's the guy that's kind of like I guess he's running as an independent or something like that. I'm not too sure how he's running, but he's basically a conservative, and I caught it on the Alex Jones show, and there was a girl, she was like, yeah, I'm going to vote for this guy, and it's the guy that in the past couple of weeks or so, they asked him about Aleppo, and he didn't know where Aleppo was. I'm like, okay, I get it, not everybody's geography, has geography as a number one occupation, I get that. But considering how important the war is, this is the problem I have with the neocons and stuff like that. Now, maybe this guy's a neocon, maybe not. I don't know anything about this guy, so I can't really comment what kind of a politician he is. But, Aleppo, okay, if somebody were to ask you where Aleppo is, you go, I think there's a guy named Ezekiel 38. He's about 39 years old, lives there, right? You look at it, you can see, oh my God, yeah, that's where Armageddon's going to take place. Well, very close to Armageddon, anyway, geography-wise. Damascus will be in ruins, and I guess so will Aleppo, But even at that, the fact that he doesn't know what conflicts his country's involved in isn't really that surprising. Again, it really isn't that surprising. I bet you if you polled 99% of Americans, they wouldn't even know there's a war going on in Syria. Most people don't watch the news. Most people don't. They probably know of Syria because they keep hearing about refugees and stuff like that. But other than that, they probably have no clue where Syria is. They probably have no clue what the conflict's about, which is most U.S. conflicts. I remember there were Americans that didn't even know about that they were even at war with Iraq. Again, because they didn't follow the news. So it wasn't that they were stupid, it's just they had no clue. They knew their military was always going overseas to fight people, but other than that. But that right there lies the problem. If the people aren't even that aware of it, of where it is or whatever, why should we be there? You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. It just goes, just kind of goes like that. Here in Canada, I'm not saying Canadians are that much better with geography or anything like that, but when Canada gets involved in anywhere in the world, it's a big uproar for us because it's like, it's so much smaller. We're 1/10 the size population-wise as the U.S. and our military is 30. Well, it's probably less than that now, but probably between 25,000 and 35,000 guys, depending on which government you get. And at that, most of them aren't frontline combat soldiers. So usually we send a handful of people into an area. Afghanistan being our biggest deployment since World War II. I mean, Canadians were all over that because it was so off common for us. You know what I mean? It was so off common for us to be around the world doing that. Now, ask us where the Canadian troops are doing disaster relief this week. I don't know. Some third world country over there somewhere. So I understand how that goes. People aren't concerned about certain things and concerned about others. But when you got a general again, this guy. I think the generals have said it, and Donald Trump in his and I'm going to maybe do a separate video on the Trump-Clinton debate. But one of the things he goes, yes, I've just been endorsed by ICE, the border agents. I've been endorsed by, I forget how many agents, they're like 150 agents or whatever, 200 generals, that type of thing. And the generals are probably looking at And if you listen again, if you were to watch the mainstream media, I was expecting this big freaking fireworks show. Watching Clinton and Trump debate, and Trump was like he was on meds or something. He was just really mellow and really calm. Yeah, he had a snarky attitude like he normally does, but anybody that says Hillary Clinton won the debate, no, she put on better optics to a degree. But anybody that had ears to listen, especially, and I will talk about it a little bit later, Trump's stance on nuclear power, on nuclear weapons and stuff like that. His explanations were good. They weren't great, but they were good. He could have taken it a bit further and he could have really done a TKO on this one if he wanted, but for some reason he was holding back. I think he was just trying to moderate himself. I think that's why he was holding back. Because there's a lot of opportunities he had to really, and the opportunities that he did take were good opportunities to show, they keep saying on the mainstream media, oh, he has no plan, but he perfectly describes the plan. Again, if people are too stupid to catch on what he's saying, that's one thing. But if you're a general, you probably caught on to what he's saying. This guy might be he's not a hothead in that sense. He's not going to bite on a war that quickly. Now, there are some things he says that are stupid, yes, and okay, well, no, you can't just be that impulsive. And people call him on it, so I think he learns moderation through being criticized, which is good. But these generals, they're going to be looking at a person that's going to say, okay, I'd rather hear about the guy who wants to negotiate with Russia than the idiot that's saying, no, we're just going to enforce this no-fly zone. And if you got to ask people, do you know what a no-fly zone means? Well, let's go back to Iraq. If you fly, you die. When the Iraqi Air Force flew, they died. Why? Because anything that got off the ground, they would shoot down. That was the goal. Now, yeah, the Iraqis did get a few, shoot down a few aircraft on their side, but they were so, outnumbered by technology. They're flying like frogfoots, floggers and fish beds. You know what I mean? They're MiG-21s, MiG-23s, Su-25s, MiG-25s. They were flying stuff like that, older Soviet technology, which is now Russian Federation. But if I say Soviet technology, I'm talking older stuff for sure. So yeah, the no-fly zone. That's what a no-fly zone is. Is if we find one of your aircraft in the air, no matter where it is in the country, we're going to shoot it down. A no-fly zone in Libya. That's what the coalition forces shot down anything that could, but they got most of the airplanes on the ground anyway. Again, MiG-21s and stuff like that. Probably the odd MiG-29. I mean, Iraq had the odd MiG-29 too. They didn't have a lot of numbers, so again, they were overwhelmed very easily, underpiloted, under aircraft, undernumbered, under technology. A no-fly zone works in an area like that. That said, these are third world countries, in my opinion. Like Iraq was a third world country under Saddam. Saudi Arabia, to me, yes, they've got lots of money there for the royal family, but it's still third world conditions for a lot of people there. Most Middle Eastern countries, like Syria, even before the destabilization, to me would be considered still a third world country. Yes, it's slightly modernized. Yes, they have power and stuff like that, but they're not living the lavish lifestyle we live in North America and Europe, that type of thing. Iran, to me, is still a third world country, although they're advancing. So third world country doesn't necessarily mean no power, no water, no whatever. There's levels of degrees. You might call them arguably a second world country. Where a first world country, they'd be like a second world country / third world country. You could say this about, like, say, Mexico, where they're industrialized and advanced. They're, like Donald Trump was saying, they're building everything. Yeah, sure, but the people still live in the slums. You know what I mean? So it's a third / second world kind of country. Israel, again, advanced enough, advanced technologies in a lot of areas, but still a lot of poor people. We'd say a second. It's kind of wrapped into three. For some it's a first world country, for some it's a second world country, for some it's a third world country. So again, these countries they're definitely not technologically advanced as much as the West. So that said, when you say no-fly zone in Syria, you're saying no-fly zone to the Assad regime, so that the Syrian pilots flying MiG-23s and Su-24s and some new MiG-29s, probably a few MiG-21s, that you're going to shoot them down. The problem is their bigger brother is there to protect them, Russia. So if you're saying no-fly zone in Syria, you're not going to say, okay, well, Assad, you can't fly. This is what John Kerry's saying. You can't fly, and the Russians, you can't fly. We're going to enforce, how do you enforce a no-fly zone against Russia? Okay, you might shoot down one or two of their aircraft, but that's all you'll get. And Russia's now in a force meets force mentality, meaning if you shoot at our guys, we'll shoot back at you. So obviously the people that are going to start the war is the United States. The United States government is trying to get Russia or China to shoot first, but they will not. They will respond. That's what their airstrike was against that forward observation center or whatever, that they killed 30. I mean, how the news is so big on that one. The world is completely unaware. Again, I know not everybody follows that, but when you kill 30, and mind you, this was a retaliation. This is what I mean, force meets force. It comes out that when they hit the Syrian, the United States and the coalition forces for an hour were bombing the Syrian army, they actually took out some high intelligence officers, Russian intelligence officers. Like I say, the Middle East is probably full of dead intelligence officers. But they probably hit somebody of significance. We'll probably never get to know the names. So in return, you kill our intelligence guys, we're going to kill your intelligence guys. Force meets force. So how, again, when you have a U.S. general saying, no, we're not going to enforce a fly zone against Russia, that would be, that's like certain death for the planet. I'm not saying the Russians will win World War III, and there's idiots from time to time comment on my channel, and if you're one of them, I'm not talking down to you, but I'm talking down to you. You got to realize what you're saying. Oh, well, no, we could take Russia. No, you can't. Do you know what that means? Okay, yes, the Allies won World War II. At what cost? We're talking millions and millions of lives. 400 million people died in that conflict. And that's a non-nuclear conflict. And the weapons are much more powerful now. I mean, you take the average fighter now, it carries what the heavy bombers used to carry. Just about, It's unbelievable that people think that way, that it's going to be a cakewalk. Oh, well, World War I was only supposed to last 2 to 3 weeks. World War II was only supposed to last 3 to 6 months tops. Yeah, Syria's been going on for 6 years. You know what I mean? Think about it, 6 years. That war's been going on for 6 years. And it gets worse as we're going to go here. But anyway, the U.S. generals, this is what also I think sets up a U.S. military coup after the Hillary Clinton win. She's going to win. It doesn't really matter who's a better debater or who has a better plan or whatever. It's her turn to win. It's a selection, not an election. So in the Baltics, you have something like 60 Topol M's moving around there for a big drill with their RS-24s. And what's this? The military right now in the United States is, there's kind of like convoys going over. Now, the convoys where you see like all these things on trains, like tanks and stuff like that, going on trains from one end of the country to the next, there is a lot of reasons for that. Number one, Abrams tanks. There's about 6,000 of those, okay, that were built. How many are in service? Not that many. But they're all over the country. And when upgrades happen, you're not going to drive an Abrams from one end of the country to the other. It's just, number one, the cost to do that would be astronomical on one vehicle, let alone, a few hundred vehicles. So when they upgrade them, they put them on a train. They take these vehicles across the country for uphauls, upgrades, and stuff like that. That is normal. You see this in Canada all the time. You see, labs going on. Some of them brand new. Sometimes they're new vehicles being, put here, put there, whatever. That is not really new. The frequency is higher than normal. So either they're updating these vehicles to get ready for a bigger war, which at the state of the Abrams right now, I think they would have to, because I don't think the Abrams would do very well in a war against Russia, particularly with the newer anti-tank weapons out there. This is one thing that if the Americans are paying attention in Saudi Arabia, that Abrams tanks are burning like crazy. They're slightly older, to the point where they're going to replenish the Abrams tanks. They're selling the Saudis more Abrams tanks because they're running low on tanks. The ragtag, cave-dwelling Houthis are basically blowing the shitballs out of these tanks. Yes, a lot of it has to do with the Saudi crews aren't like American crews. They're not as good. But they're driving the same tanks. So either the tanks are getting dated and they need new armor upgrades, or something else. And I think it's more the armor upgrades, So the convoys, again, with the militarization and the fact that they can now, same here in Canada, although you don't see it as much in Canada, do military drills on the street, you're seeing more convoys driving up and down the streets of like Humvees and other newer vehicles and stuff, labs and stuff like that. So you're seeing that stuff through the U.S. cities, and drills are going on everywhere all the time. So people are getting used to seeing that. It's like anything. If you're used to seeing the military on the street all the time in training drills. When it goes to martial law, it's not going to be real to people. It's going to be, it's just the military on the street. So, things to keep in mind. I don't know if you've been catching on in Sweden. There was about 70 cars burnt. I don't think there's any cars left in Sweden in one of those Sharia no-go zones. So that's going to spark up at some point. France, again, they're gearing up. They're talking about getting rid of the jungle there in Calais. I think that's going to go pretty violently when they do. And building all kinds of refugee centers. In Dresden, there was a refugee center or a mosque bombed. Nobody killed, I don't think. In Hungary, there was an explosion, injured 2 police officers. Not sure who did it, but and the list goes on and on and on. And there's a few other places. So the migrant crisis is, destabilizing, as you would imagine. The Russians, they believe they're Russians. An unknown number of Russian Su-24 SMs, which is the upgraded Su-25 SMs, back in Syria. They just kind of showed up. So the Russians they got, and this is where you get disinformation from like John Kerry and stuff like that. They keep saying, Russia said they were pulling their aircraft out. No, they're rotating their aircraft, meaning they fly, say, a batch of Su-24s for 6 months, and then they bring them home, bring in the next one, rotate them. Do all the necessary repairs. I mean, combat aircraft, whether they're being shot at or not doesn't really matter. They go, it's a lot of maintenance to keep these things in the air. And they also find out what works, what doesn't work. Okay, well, we need to upgrade this, we upgrade that. Okay, send these 3 back, and we'll send the new ones with the upgrades. How do they do? Again, one thing for Russia is Syria has been one of their best training grounds for their new weapons and everything like that. They're testing all kinds of new weapons in Syria. Kind of like how the Spanish War and with the Nazis, you know what I mean? It was a training exercise kind of thing. So that type of thing. Pope says journalism is terrorism. Basically, he's talking about anybody that's objective against the migrants, I guess. This Pope is kind of he's again the 112th Pope, so to speak. Will he be the last Pope? Who knows? Who knows? The Jesuit Pope. Yeah, the coup to overthrow Kim Jong-un, it's a new unit, but how could these guys exist in North Korea? How would you know about them? If they were, we're going to do a coup on you, Mr. Kim Jong-un. It's like, plan has been foiled because I knew about it, because they told me, yeah. So I don't know where that comes from and why. The 60 Topol M's, with the Yars and with the Yars launchers, about 700 miles from NATO bases, Tver region. That's where those Topol M's are. So the Topol M's, that again, 700 miles from the region is not really a big deal. But the fact that 60 of them are moving, it's one of their largest Topol M drills that they've ever done. And so again, the drills are not new. It's the frequency and the size of them. The big Russian drill, if you didn't see this Russian drill, the one that was, they kept saying, oh my God, they're getting ready to invade Crimea, included 100,000 civilians, 100,000 civilians in the Kazakh Caucasus regions with 125,000 troops, about 300 aircraft and ships and everything like that. And that's how big that drill, that was just a massive, massive drill. Again, probably... Each drill is a record-breaking one, and Russia and China are going to do an even bigger naval drill in the South China Sea. Again, ongoing. 2 Russian fleets of the Northern Fleet and the Pacific Fleet in a drill up north doing missile tests. Again, find me a time during the First Cold War that was this active. It's just, that's unbelievable. Philippines is becoming more pro-Chinese and Russia. There's already rumors of a coup d'etat to take place. Again, regime change. I didn't think that guy was going to make it very far anyway before the U.S. would do regime change on him. But there's already talks about a military coup in the Philippines. So if you're in the Philippines, be careful over there. It's going to get messy. So regime change, because again, the only other what this guy is really saying, if you haven't been listening to that guy there over there in the Philippines, this guy's been, it's not only, he's not only comic relief of trashing Obama all the time, but you have to understand, when he says that he wants to work with Russia and China, he's saying he wants to get out of the petrodollar. That's what he's saying, if you're reading between the lines. Maybe not right away, but that's what it means. They don't want new F-16s to fight the drug war. This guy, again, is pretty serious. I mean, this guy's already killed like 3,000 people, had 3,000 people, drug lords and stuff killed. So, I mean, over there, it kind of makes sense why they do stuff like that, because it's an insolvent area. You can't go after these drug dealers with rule of law. You have to kill them, because there's just so many of them. And it's the same thing what you have going on in Mexico with the Knights Templar drug cartel fighting, these vigilante, whatever they are. I think they're mostly like undercover cops and stuff like that just, if we can't arrest them, let's just assassinate them. Which never works out well in the long run for these countries, because it's just new boss is worse than the old boss. So you got rid of your drug cartels, but now you got an iron fist and a jackboot, on your throat, that type of thing. So, yeah, and this can happen to any country, even first world countries. As far as all the Topol M's moving around, the United States is bringing more nukes to Eastern Europe. I'm not exactly sure which countries again, but it's usually like Romania and all that. So again, Russia sees this. There's no way this, this is not for, the missile systems going around Russia are not to keep Iran away, like the U.S. has been saying. I don't think the Russians would have fallen for it anyway. So again, that's happening. Three AWACS are going to the Middle East, so that makes a suggestion that they are going to probably try a no-fly zone at some point. You don't bring in an AWAC. That's a very high asset area thing to have. I can see one of these AWACS getting shot down. By who? That's hard to say, because this one, an Al Nusra guy. Now this came off of RT, so take this with a grain of salt. But I do believe it's probably genuine, because of again it's pretty much openly admitted anyway. So an Al Nusra guy, which they call Al Sham, is basically ISIS and Al Nusra, which Al Sham basically was Al Nusra. Al Nusra was Al Qaeda, and Al Sham is the U.S. One of the moderate rebels. So it's just a rebranding. Anyway, the Al Nusra guy says support is not. They got support from the U.S. not directly. They basically they get the weapons through UAE, Qatar, Turkey, that type of thing, and they get the weapons via Turkey, and they get trained by officers. Again, this is probably the guys that are getting killed on the ground. They're guys. So they got the UAE, Qatar, US, Turkish, I can imagine Saudis and Egyptians. I can imagine they're all in there, and the Israelis as well, are training up the Al Nusra guys. They're training up Al Nusra guys with these new TOW missiles, which again, it's the United States is backing terrorism for regime change. They're also going to be getting a whole bunch of MADPAD launchers. Basically, ISIS will be shooting down anything that they can. So they're giving these advanced weapons to basically Al-Qaeda. I cannot imagine what it is like for any U.S. pilot that is over there right now, or a coalition pilot over there, flying and then realizing that we're being shot at by our own weapons. Yes, if there's anything that's going to stage a military coup in the United States, this is it. So when a MADPAD takes out one of these AWACS, they'll blame it on the Russians and the Syrians for sure. But they might want that to happen anyway, because then they can blame it on the Russians and Syrians and say, oh, now we have to go to war. The United States goes to war before they get the facts out. They use that opportunity. No good crisis goes to waste, right? That type of thing. So I'm talking U.S. government, not the people. The people aren't going to put up with this. I don't think the U.S. people will put up with this for very, very, very much longer. U.S. using white phosphorus. They say they're just using it in their smoke screens and stuff like that. But obviously they're using it. I mean, white phosphorus in the bombs, and you got depleted uranium in the A-10 rounds coming in. So, okay, so that's really all I got for now. I mean, there's been so much coverage of the election that there's not a lot on the World War III front that's being covered. But the same stuff is going on. Now, let's get to the thing that I maybe not necessarily worry about, but I'm most concerned about. And it was nice to hear Donald Trump say this. Again, he is a bit of a raw. You can't take every word of Donald Trump literal, because you do understand he does work off the cuff. So you have to kind of, what is this overall message kind of thing? Don't go by the sound bites. And of course, if you were to watch the mainstream media, the debate, oh, Hillary Clinton was so collective and calm, she really didn't say anything that was reassuring or surprising. The typical buzzwords, yes, keep in the realm of racist, bigot, that's about the only arguments she was, it's the only arguments they have is racist, bigot, misogynist, xenophobe, homophobe. That's the only, again, right back into that stuff. The whole night they were trying to keep it into that. So basically there were three big questions, two of them on the economy, one of them on kind of foreign policy, so to speak. There was a few other questions in, but the main thing. So the debate was about an hour and a half, so 90 minutes or whatever. And when it comes to foreign policy and stuff like that, not so much about how Hillary Clinton is going to defeat ISIS by telling ISIS how she's going to defeat them on her website, stuff like that. And Hillary Clinton's like, well, you don't even say what your plan is. And Donald Trump's more like, well, I'm not going to tell the enemy that I'm coming. And this is one thing that, if you don't realize that they're arming ISIS and stuff like that, the ISIS guys always get a warning before the U.S. is about to strike them. They get a warning. Heck, they drop leaflets in the area they're going to bomb. Russia doesn't do that. Russia just bombs it. And it tells you a week after, yeah, we're going to bomb that area that we bombed last week. That type of thing. They don't warn you at all. And that's what's getting the intelligence officers, I think, killed. At some point, people are going to have to notice this. So, all these guys that are getting killed on the ground there, again, how many of them are Mossad? How many of them are CIA or State Department? That type of thing. How many of them are Turkish intelligence? How many of them are Russian intelligence, whatever, Iranian intelligence, whatever. We don't know. But we do know now that the big, that hour-long attack was against some probably top Iranian brass, some top, Russian advisors and stuff like that. So we know that happened, and we know what the Russians did in return with the Syrians. They got payback, is what they did. But the Russians did it, not so much the Syrians, because the Russians can get away with it. Why? Because they have an air force to get away with it. Again, if the Russians kill your guys, you can't just say, okay, we're going to war with Russia. You got it, because any general out there, it would probably create a military coup instantly within the U.S. because it's like, no, going to war with Russia is a thermonuclear war. These guys, the Russians aren't a ragtag army. They're very professional. They're as good as, maybe slightly less technologically advanced in some areas, but they're as good as the United States for a war. They're as good. The numbers, in fact, they probably exceed in the manpower numbers. I know some people will take offense to that, but you have to understand, is an F-22 really that much better than an Su-35? I say no. The Su-35 can detect the F-22 100 miles away. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, it might have a little more difficulty detecting the stealth, but it's not stealthy enough. Maneuverability, sure, I'd give the power advantage to the F-22, but maneuverability to the Su-35. So who has longer range weapons? The Su-35 has longer range weapons. So in an air-to-air fight, again, and there's about equal amount of those type of aircraft. There's only a handful of F-22s anyway. Now, F-15s against an Su-35, I'm putting the advantage to the Su-35s and Su-30s. They're more powerful, they're more maneuverable. They can definitely detect the F-15s, no problem. F-15 is still a great, what makes the F-15 great is the guy who flies it. It's still a great airplane. I think it's the best fighter that the Americans have ever built. It's more practical than the F-22. It gets the job done. I would just kind of refine that, kind of like how the Russians, refine the Su-27s. So rather than flying Su-27s, they're now flying Su-35s. But to give you an idea, that it's, what was better, a Spitfire or a Messerschmitt? It depended on the pilot. And you can debate back, oh, well, this airplane was slightly more maneuverable, this one was slightly more stable to fly, whatever. This one had more powerful cannons, which was better, but the other one had more machine guns on it. Who was better? Who was better? It always came down to the pilot. And it'll be the same with tank crews, warships, submarines, aircraft. It's who, the man, not the machine. That said, can you imagine 10,000 aircraft going toe-to-toe in the sky all in the same day? It'd be like World War II over again, only with jets. It'd be a quick war. I'll say, like, all the technologically advanced stuff is gone after 2 weeks, like satellites and stuff. There'll be no more Facebook or YouTube, that's for sure. That type of stuff. It's gone after 2 weeks. After that, we're into an analog war. And in an analog war kind of scenario, which I mean, again, I follow this enough. I'm not an expert on anything, but just observation tells me, what are the Russians and Chinese preparing to do? They're preparing to fight an analog war in the Stone Age. That's what they're preparing to do. They're going low tech. Their new Ratnik system is not satellite dependent. It can use satellite technology, but it's not satellite dependent. NATO is so heavily relied on, and the United States are so heavily relied on satellites that once they're blinded, it doesn't mean that they can't fight, but then you are totally relying on the aircraft's radar, the ship's radar, the AWACS, that type of thing. So the first thing the Russians are going to go after is the first thing, communications and stuff like that. That's the first thing they're going after in Eastern Europe. After that, everything else is pretty much, well, we can move our guys here, move our guys there. They won't know. You won't know there's a brigade of T-90s coming around the corner until you come around the corner to meet them. And then at that point, it's just mano a mano. First shot, first kill. It'll be a slaughter fest on both sides. That's the point I'm making. There will be no winners. And unlike World War II, we don't just start up manufacturing here and keep the numbers coming. That will not happen. It'll be a cruise missile fest. Lockheed Martin will not exist. Why? Because the amount of cruise missiles that will take out Lockheed Martin. Supply depots, the coastal naval yards, all that stuff can be taken out from thousands of miles away, let alone, off your coast with hundreds of bombers scrambling all at once. You can scramble every F-16, every F-18, every CF-18, every F-15, name them all. You scramble them all at once. And yes, most Russian bombers will get shot down, but the first wave of bombers is going to be Tu-95s. And the thing is those things have a 10,000-mile range. So by the time the fighters get to the bombers have already launched their 2,000-mile-long cruise missile. They're already heading back. So basically the F-15s and the F-16s and the F-18s are going to have to fly with a tanker right beside them the whole way. And the tankers can't keep up to the logistics of it. That was the point of an aircraft carrier, so he can be in the region. Problem is you have 13 in service, from what I've recently heard from people. 13 out of the 14 aircraft carriers are in service. Now, out of that, they can't be everywhere. And aircraft carriers aren't going to last very long in World War III. Why? Yes, an aircraft carrier can defend itself. It can fire anti-missile defense and stuff like that. It has that stuff. But what happens when it fires its last salvo of missiles to take out other incoming missiles? It's a sitting duck. There's only so many star shells you can put up before a missile comes in. It's just the battery of missiles will take out warships like crazy. And once the warships are gone, I'm actually putting my money on the Russian Navy and not the Chinese Navy as much. I think the Chinese lose all their warships right away. But they will take American warships and a lot of aircraft down with them. Then the coastal defense, I think, is what defends the Chinese. The Russians, I think they lose their warships, but not right away. And they take a hell of a lot of aircraft down with them, sub-hunters and whatever, and other ships and, that type of thing. However, the Northern Fleet and the Pacific Fleet submarines, that's where I think the Russians are going to shine. I think they wreak extreme havoc, working in conjunction with the Chinese and the North Koreans. They will simply overwhelm the U.S. submarine fleets. There's no doubt about that. And they will then probably overwhelm the warships. I mean, again, we're talking 70 warships, 80 warships max that the United States has. If you add up submarines and everything, less than 150 warships to deal with. Once you take out, these are like what you call blue water ships. I mean, if you're talking like coastal cruisers and stuff like that, yeah, there's a lot of little stuff like that. But those things aren't a threat to China or Russia. Why? Because they don't have the range and that type of thing. So they're going to go after those first. And if they lose even half their submarine fleet, they're still going to have a lot left over. Now, the North Koreans, I think they're going to lose all their submarines, and they're probably going to lose them at a great loss. But when they're lucky, they're going to wreak havoc on supply ships. I think the North Koreans go after the more harbors and supply ships and stuff like that. They might get the odd warship, but I don't think, again, they're not advanced enough. You're going to know where the North Korean subs are 500 miles before you get there. But depending on the tactics, if they use hunter-killer tactics like World War II, which that's what I would do. If I had 1950s Romeo-class submarines, and I knew that there was a Virginia-class submarine out in the water, I know I'm a dead man if I try to take on that submarine. So what I'll do is I'll tell my other 6 submarines, I'm going to be coming through this corridor. Sit there with the torpedo bays doors open when I go by. I'm going to make a lot of noise when I'm coming, and there's going to be, trust me, I'm going to make sure that he's, just outside of torpedo range behind me. So you go, you saber rattle, you're 500 miles out, you detect the Virginia, you sonar pong him, you found him, he's now coming after you. He's a hunter-killer, he's coming after you. You draw them in. Sure, just before you make it to where you got to go, that submarine's lost. Okay, a second submarine fires its torpedoes. Okay, that submarine's lost. Virginia is just about to get away. Oh, there's another one. Okay, that submarine's lost. Okay, bang, the torpedo. The other two, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. You got 30 torpedoes in the water at once. It's a lot of noise. Everybody's going to know where everybody is. Countermeasures, they're going to run out at some point, and then you've lost that. So you sacrifice maybe 5 or 6 North Korean subs for one Virginia-class sub. That's a win. That's a massive win. That is such a massive win. Why? Because numbers game. They've got more to burn up. Now, that said, the more advanced Chinese subs you're paving the way for them. They can get off the coast and then launch their missiles. That type of thing. So when Donald Trump is talking about nuclear, like Hillary Clinton, oh yeah, well, nuclear force. She doesn't even have a policy on nuclear force. So basically Hillary Clinton's saying, well, yes, we're going to use this force. We're going to use it. That's it. That's a done deal. Like if we have to, we're going to use it. Bang. Here we go. Donald Trump is, again, if you were a military guy, you had to listen to this and shake your head. Yes, this guy's talking some common sense. He's not talking neocon. He goes, my biggest fear is we live with powerful, devastating weapons. And a war with Russia or China, and I'm paraphrasing here, he basically says, is not survivable. It's devastation for all of mankind. So he gets it. He gets it. He's not, they keep saying Donald Trump's the gung-ho and the one that'll get us into the war. I think he could be duped easily into certain things. But he's going to have, if he has the endorsement of the generals, trust me, he's going to put a lot of, the man knows that it pays to specialize. He's going to put a lot of, Donald Trump has been consistent on this. So when it comes to nuclear force, what he's talking about is de-escalation before we get there. Why let it get that bad? And this is something he said it more than once. Hillary was saying, go check the facts on my website. Yeah, like you could trust her website. But Donald Trump kept saying, you're worried about this now? You've had 10 years to take care of this problem. Problem A, B, C. He said this 4 or 5 times in the night, I'm pretty sure. At least 3. Where he said, why are you talking about a solution now? You created the problem. Problem, reaction, solution, there you go. And you're talking about solving the problem. Now, you've had your whole career life, your whole adult life to fight these guys, to do this. But you created them, That's basically what he's saying. And so what he's saying is basically, and he said it several times, that, this will be the last American election if, he doesn't. He said he will accept the election results. I think he's just saying that. But that said, the election results are going to be simple. When Hillary Clinton wins, the U.S. military's got to decide. They're going to have to read that Constitution a couple of times and say, is it going to be a silent coup, or are we going to make a lot of noise on this? That's the only thing. That's what the endorsement of Donald Trump with all these generals are saying. The military endorses Donald Trump. The problem is most people go along to get along, and history shows that most troops will fire on their own citizens, no matter how patriotic they are. They always follow orders. They just follow orders. They do that. It is what it is. The majority will. So that will set you up for a maybe, like I say, the proverbial 3%ers going for a military coup in the United States. And people, well, that never happened here. You know how many times that's been quoted in history? Oh, we never thought that could happen here. This is a nice place. But we're a first world country. That can't happen. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Get off your high stool. Yeah, of course it can happen. You know how many attempted coups have happened here in Canada? Quite a few. We've had lots of war here. Mind you, most of it was 250 years ago, but as recent as 100 some odd years ago, we nearly had a few. You know what I mean? It does happen. But the thing is Donald Trump is at least talking about, sensibility when it comes to nuclear weapons. He's not saying, oh yeah, we're going to use them, we're going to use them. It's like, we need to be careful about these things, that type of thing. So again, don't take my word for it. Go listen to him. Again, some people are they're too thick to understand what the man is saying. They're particularly Clinton supporters. Like, a Clinton supporter is not somebody with a lot of original thought. The reason why they keep trying to bring the conversation back to racist, bigot, xenophobe, homophobe, misogynist, that type of thing, is so that you don't ask the serious questions. But when Donald Trump did get the serious questions, I thought he handled them very moderately. I think he could have went a little bit more hell-bent on them and really knocked it out of the park. But I think he was just he was probably told by his guys to really, really concentrate on not going off the deep end. That's why they brought up the birther thing, basically oh, he was a racist and he got sued for racism, and like that's why they bring up that stuff. I think any American that understands where they are right now, they don't fall for that stuff anymore, which is good. But there's still a lot of people that are clueless, and stuff like that. That said, I think the vote is still, if it were a fair election, an actual election, I think, yes, Donald Trump would win. But he's not going to win. But the bigger telling thing is, as reasonable, okay, yes, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Donald Trump is your best option. That's it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's a step in the right direction on a lot of things economically, even up here in Canada when it was polled by BNN, who, and on the CB, this came out on the leftist CBC, who was completely in the Hillary Clinton camp. Most Canadian investors would rather have a Donald Trump presidency. His economic plan, with the trickle-down thing, well, trickle-down works, kind of fails on if you embrace globalism. But a trickle-down, will work for the economy if you embrace nationalism. It will work. So that type of thing. And again, raising taxes. And he says it very clearly. All these things that you're saying you want to do, we're a $20 trillion deficit. We can't do that. There is no more charity. There is no more free stuff, liberals entitled to their entitlements. Cuts have to be made. That type of thing. And Donald Trump hasn't really talked about a lot of cuts. He's talked about deregulation, which means cuts, means laying off government workers, which is what the United States desperately needs. But some areas he wants to make the military more powerful. But he also wants NATO countries to pay their fair share, which he goes like, look at Saudi Arabia. They got tons of money, and we're defending them. They should be paying us. But then now, once you do that, you have a mercenary army. You know what I mean? So that's where I take issue with that. But he does make some good points there. So again, he's not perfect, and I would not, I'm a gray area person. I'm not a black or white person. I'm a gray area person. But reading between the lines, you can survive 4 years of Donald Trump. You can't survive 4 years of Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton, this woman froths at the mouth of, like John McCain and Zbigniew Brzezinski, they froth at the mouth with the idea of doing a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia. And can you even imagine? First off, you can't even pull that off. The second the nukes start flying, the Russians are launching. You know what I mean? And they're launching everything. And trust me, their plan is just as good as the United States. Nobody wins this war. That said, the fact that these idiots want to get us into a war in the first place. John Kerry, again, a no-fly zone in Syria. Yeah, when you tell the flyboys to enforce that, you're telling them to shoot down Russian airplanes. The Russians, you might be able to shoot 1 or 2 down, 3 down, maybe even a dozen down. But they will do tit for tat. But the Russians will let it happen clear enough that they had no choice to respond, and the world will see it. And the thing is that at that point, it's either we all go to war and die for, all these banker wars for Israel, for the Greater Israel Project. That's what the Middle East is about, the Greater Israel Project. It's about other things too. At the end of the day, it's always about war, money, oil, and that type of thing. But it's this hegemony against that hegemony. That's all it is. And I think it's very, very clear that the Russians, they're prepared for this now. They know there is no negotiation with the United States. They're going to do regime change in Syria. Again, they don't care how much the Syrian people suffer. Those white helmets that they keep talking about on the CBC and stuff like that, this is a George Soros-funded group. Funny how this guy's name comes up everywhere there's death and destruction. Ukraine, the overthrow of Ukraine, George Soros again. It just goes and it goes. Black Lives Matter, George Soros again. Apparently Hungary is ditching, like they did in Russia, George Soros NGO groups, which here in Canada, the migrant crisis, John McClellan, talking about our good friend George Soros. This guy's everywhere. He is a problem to the world. Him and the people above him, below him, whatever. But the thing is that these people are insane. They are completely insane. So Donald Trump, he's a rough one. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's very, very clear that when he says that he is worried about nuclear war, let's put it into perspective here, that he realized how dangerous of a time we're living in. That's a good thing. I haven't heard a president acknowledge that in that kind of way. That let's kind of negotiate our way out of this. Let's stop it before it starts, that type of thing. So that's a good thing. So if he only gets one thing right, and that's it, the one thing he gets right, that's the best thing for humanity. Hillary Clinton is all about war with Russia and China and stuff like that. We're going to use our assets to defend ourselves this way, this way. You have to read between the lines what she is saying, and if you follow this woman long enough, you understand she is a complete lunatic. She's the type of woman that thinks she can just sit it out in her bunker while the rest of us has to, the rest of the pawns have to duke it out, right? And again, nobody in their right mind, like that's the thing. Like for a banking system, for the petrodollar to go to a thermonuclear war with Russia and China, this is not Iraq. This is not again, yes, anybody can take out most Middle Eastern country air forces and armies and stuff like that, but you cannot take out the Russian army easily. Russia, population-wise, isn't the issue. It's the weapons. It's the weapons are so freaking powerful, and there is just no way, with the missile system. Iron Dome, if it proved anything, that it's maybe at best 50% reliable. The THAAD system is just a bigger version of that. The Patriot missile system is just the upgrade. THAAD system is just the upgraded version of that. It's not foolproof. The numbers, as soon as your four pack 3 missiles are out, the 5th missile gets by. That 5th missile with 10 warheads. One Yars Sarmat can, with its 10 warheads, can pretty much devastate the state of New York, the state of Texas. Like it's not the blast range, it's the fallout too, but it'd be complete utter devastation. And Hillary Clinton, again, God help us when she wins. So I think there will be a military coup if she wins. Maybe not right away, but the closer we get to a thermonuclear war, I think the U.S. generals are going to have to make some tough decisions. It's going to get messy. It's going to get bloody. That's my prediction. Again, I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. I will have shirts out pretty soon, hopefully this week, maybe next week. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like, be true to yourselves, be true to others, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. Hey, hi, and welcome. All right, good morning to everybody. All right, going to check out my apples first. I just hooked them back up, drying out my apples. I had them on for about 4 hours yesterday. The amount of sugar concentration you get when you dry them out, whoo, it's tasty. That's pretty tasty. Got to dry a little more though. So I put them up to 50 Celsius or 120 Fahrenheit. So just so you know. It's another cool morning. I did watch the Trump-Hillary Clinton debate. That will play into the World War III update. 11 degrees right now, and we must check on dog. I don't know where my cat is. Cats. Dog alive? Hey, Goof? And she's kind of moving. See, eyes moving anyway, so. Yeah, poor girl still got an itch there. They took her to the vet the other day. She wasn't happy about that. So we got her on medication again. That poor dog. All right, so World War III update. That's sunny. Right in the morning, and the sun just kind of gets her right in the face here. It's nice though, nice and warm. Oh, a little bit too bright. It's that time of the year where I hate to block out the sun because I like the sun, but I can't sit there with the sun in my eyes. So it's that time of year where the sun's a lot lower, the days are getting much shorter, stuff like that. All right, so I got my. Jeez, you're always stalling. All right. Which side should I start on? I don't have a lot, but stuff to. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll start on the side of the page. Sometimes I forget which to start. Yeah. I guess this is. Okay. So Obama. If you haven't heard, and again, this does play into what's going on. The 9/11 case against Saudi Arabia, where the families want to sue Saudi Arabia. I'm sure some of them want to shoot them too. For the supporting the hijackers and stuff like that, which is pretty much openly known now. Now, if you sue Saudi Arabia, you have to sue Israel as well, because again, it's the same plot. It's always the same ploy, always the same players, right? That said, the Obamas vetoed it. They can't do it. Now, a lot of people probably don't realize why. And here's the thing: if the United States can sue Saudi Arabia for the 9/11 attacks, what happens to the Bushes and the Obamas and the Clintons when Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, all these people can make cases of crimes against humanity and acts of terrorism? Again, Afghanistan and Iraq, an open line of weapons of mass destruction. There were no weapons of mass destruction. So that's what it's really about. It's not, like they can't do it. They can't do it though. The United States will have so many countries suing them. It will be, and the thing is, the UN can only cover for the U.S. to a degree. Like they can't, if they actually call the bluff of international law which I believe the other countries have the right to sue as well. Again, particularly the Bush family and stuff like that. So Saudi Arabia getting sued is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, and that's why it has more to do with the repercussions of people suing the United States for destroying their countries, right? So, yeah. Okay, and this one's big. This comes all the way from North Korea, where our favorite friend Kim Jong-un is, with his big, powerful, pudgy fist. And he, as a mighty ruler, what he did was allow an air show. Yeah, believe it or not, North Korea does its first air show. It looked like there was some pretty good, maneuvers going on there. They had their MiG-29. I think they have like 3 or 4 MiG-29s. These are like the older MiG-29s too. They got the white underbelly, dark green paint, big, the big red star on there. I'm sure they had a bunch of MiG-15s and MiG-17s flying around as well. I like to watch stuff like that in the displays because sometimes you get a feel for how their pilots are and stuff like that. Now the MiG-29 is, regardless of what nation flies it, is a decent airplane. No matter what year you pick. Radar-wise, the problem with the older ones is that that's where they're going to fall short. Airframe-wise, the airplane's fantastic. So you get to see a bit of displays. I guess that might have been a morale booster for the North Koreans. We got a lot going on in North Korea there. Right now there's a talk of a whole. I'll probably get to it down here somewhere. Again, I have to kind of go back and forth a bit, but maybe I'll try to see if I can throw it in. There's a group over there in North Korea that wants to basically overthrow Kim Jong-un. But the thing about this is that, what group of military guys is this? The fact that we know about it, it's kind of one of those things. When a coup happens, you don't get a warning. You don't get a warning. So, yeah. Anyway, moving down. So, no-fly zone. This is Joseph Dunford. If you haven't seen this guy's, there's a little snippet. When they're asking him, this was on RT, they were asking him about, basically John Kerry talking about his no-fly zone. And again, this is the problem I have with these politicians and stuff like that. They say things and they don't realize, well, you're forcing other people into war. And he's like, so they ask him, so when John Kerry says there's going to be a no-fly zone in Syria, what do you make of that? He goes, well, he says, that would mean direct war with Russia. He says, I'm not willing to sign up for that type of thing. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but basically he's more or less saying he's a fucking lunatic. It's like there's no way we're going to enforce a no-fly zone with Russia. Now, I forget the name of the politician. It's the guy that's kind of like I guess he's running as an independent or something like that. I'm not too sure how he's running, but he's basically a conservative, and I caught it on the Alex Jones show, and there was a girl, she was like, yeah, I'm going to vote for this guy. And it's the guy that in the past couple of weeks or so, they asked him about Aleppo, and he didn't know where Aleppo was. I'm like, okay, I get it, not everybody's geography, has geography as a number one occupation. I get that. But considering how important the war is, this is the problem I have with the neocons and stuff like that. Now, maybe this guy's a neocon, maybe not. I don't know anything about this guy, so I can't really comment what kind of a politician he is. But, Aleppo, okay, if somebody were to ask you where Aleppo is, you go, I think there's a guy named Ezekiel 38. He's about 39 years old, lives there, right? You look at it and you can see, oh my God, yeah, that's where Armageddon's going to take place. Well, very close to Armageddon anyway, geography-wise. Damascus will be in ruins, and I guess so will Aleppo. But even at that, like, okay, the fact that he doesn't know